Hello and warm welcome. I'm Pooja Bothra from the Economic Times HR world, and I bring to you yet another episode of the Thought Leadership series co-created by ET and Coursera on the future of learning. Two leaders will be joining us to discuss the trends that are influencing the creation of equal learning opportunities in the digital world. So folks, get ready to learn, unlearn, and relearn the building blocks of digital learning paradigms to fast-track careers. I'd like to welcome Shalini Modi, Senior Vice President of Learning and Employee Experience, Genpact, and Arushee Aggarwal, Head of Coursera for Business India, Coursera. Welcome to this chat show, Arushee and Shalini.
Thank you, Pooja.
Thanks, Pooja.
Shalini, the first question is for you. Given that the topic for this discussion is creating equal opportunity for learning in the digital world, how can we proactively address potential disparities in digital learning to provide equal skill development and career advancement?
Great question, Pooja. And I think before we get into, how can we do that, I would like to reflect a little bit on what are the business and talent imperatives today, why somebody should think about doing that, right? And I firmly believe learning is a great leveler. And we've seen knowledge is power. I think India's generation, this current generation of professionals have proved it worldwide by being at the helm of some of the largest organizations that learning and education and having that knowledge can actually take them places, can accelerate, where people come from and, what their backgrounds are and, what country they come from. All of that is at a different level when people have that knowledge and learning and they can actually put it to use, right? So on one hand, learning is a great leveler. And on the other hand, I think COVID has taught us that, when you have a dire need, people will change their behavior. And so during the last 2-3 years, we've seen a massive impetus in everybody moving to digital learning, with people working from home, learning from home. And so something that the industry has been dreaming of doing for many, many years, suddenly it's all become a reality in the last couple of years. Now, if you think about, what are organizations and what are people going through today, on one hand, increasingly the problems that organizations need to solve require more than one person to work together and solve. I don't think there are any problems today that can be solved just by using one specific skill, right? So whether it is just technology or it is just domain or industry knowledge or process knowledge, increasingly more and more of the problems that organizations are faced with, the world is faced with, right? So if you think about our largest problems today around climate change, sustainability, geopolitical conflict, almost all problems require people with complementary skills and diverse perspectives to come together and solve it. So organizations need people with different skills, different perspectives to come together and solve and innovate. So I think that's one of the end of the spectrum. On the second hand, finding good talent is still extremely hard, right? While attrition numbers have gone down, you still finding good talent and the right talent for your organization is still extremely hard. And so you need to expand your funnel, your reach, your appeal as an employer, and make yourself almost approachable to more and more people across the society. The third dimension of this is the fact that existing talent will need to be upskilled and reskilled at scale and at speed, right? The future of work is changing. COVID was a big impetus. Everybody had to move to hybrid remote working. Even if people are now back to office, more and more people are now working in hybrid environments. They're working with remote teams, distributed teams everywhere. On the second hand, what we are seeing with the rise of generative AI, in future, more and more work will be AI powered, even if we do not realize it, right? And so somebody's rightfully said that English is the new best powerful programming language. And the fact that AI may not replace you, but somebody who knows AI will, right? So that is what the future is now moving towards. So every single person in the organization will need to be reskilled, upskilled, and at speed and scale. And so I think the big question is, how do organizations really make this happen? Because this is something that they need for their own business, for their clients, as well as for the talent that they have.
Arushee, you are at the helm of one of the biggest platforms for online learning. So I'd like to ask you, what trends are you seeing playing a pivotal role in digital learning space?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I have to really give kudos to the way Shalini really put it, right? Because it from looking at the business needs to what the people aspect of this is to actually what the trends are. So I think already very well summarized. So if I were to talk specific on what I have seen in the online learning digital space, right? Few years back, learning was a very open learning concept. It was just a benefit which was being provided to the employees, something that was a part of the perquisites that a company gave. From there, it went on to become guided learning, which is providing catalogs and libraries and curated pathways. And today, more and more, we are seeing that this is skill based learning and role based learning. So I think Shalini put it really beautifully that not one skill is sufficient for individuals and teams to be able to succeed in the world that there is today. So whatever the role might be, the skill that is required is where the learning really comes together. And if I were to take the example that is applicable to every single company in the world of new manager, when a company promotes an IC to become a new manager, they need to have change management, team management, conflict management, a number of skills. So how does one provide that holistically in the way that they're able to deliver their job roles in the sector that they're in? So that's really what we are seeing in terms of trends from open guided to now skills first learning. And along with that, I think learning how to learn is becoming quite important because there are no individuals in the workforce today who know everything that is required for their job. So they need to be agile. And, maybe separately, I'd love to touch a little bit on the generative AI aspect that Shalini spoke about as well. Even if people aren't directly doing it, they need to know the tools to be able to make their productivity much higher and be able to succeed in the roles that they're doing.
Shalini, when we talk about the workplace, there is a diverse workforce that exists today. There are different demographics, there are different skills when it comes to digital literacy. So how do you ensure that despite this disparity in digital savviness, everybody is using digital tools to learn?
Again, I think both the diversity that we've seen in past, but the demographic divide that we see in the organizations today plays a big role in how people learn, how they absorb things, how they reach their full potential. If you think about, on one hand, you have the challenge that people learn differently, but on the other hand, again, tech has played a huge role in also just bridging some of this divide. And so think about mobile as something that now everybody has access to, right? And something that everybody has become familiar with. So people might have in past found it hard to, use certain applications or figure out things on a laptop. But now mobile is something that, irrespective of people's background, irrespective of, how they learn, it is something, and it's accessible pretty much to everybody, especially in a country like India. It is mobile first in everything. So I think that's one. Second is, if you think about how do you get everybody to learn and, bridge that gap, I actually want to think about how some of the consumer apps work today. So think about Paytm, right? You do not have to teach people how to use Paytm. And why is that the case? And that's the case, or same thing for, things like Amazon or, now even Blinkit and things like that. So people who would have never used these things in past, and these are, I'm talking about, senior adults, senior citizens, kids, teenagers, people who may not have had a great education background. I think building, so one is what Arushee just talked about, right? Guiding that learning, making it very, very relevant to people for their roles, for the skills that they need to be successful today and for tomorrow. I think that's a huge part of it that organizations need to play a role. The second is, how do you make the entire learning process very, very intuitive using human-centric design? And this is where we need to draw, inspiration, especially I think organizations need to draw inspiration from all of the, consumer apps, which people do not have to think, and they do not have a learning curve in even figuring out how to use those apps. So that's the second part. And I think the third part is then this requires massive change, leadership sponsorship, the role of a manager in coaching people to say, this is how you move forward. This is how you create time, prioritize time for learning above some of the other things that typically, occupy your time. So I think in my mind, those are the 2-3 ways in which, one can go about, and organizations now almost have this as an imperative for them. And again, I think Anushri touched upon it. It is no longer something which is optional, which is a perk, which is a good to have. This is the heart and soul of your talent strategy. And if you cannot, as an employer, provide those opportunities to people and, provide ways for everybody to learn, you are going to be irrelevant.
Arushee, I'd like to ask you the same question, given the fact that you will have viewpoints from the other side. So how do you see technology and online enterprise learning evolving to meet the needs of a diverse workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. And Shalini, love the point around how the UI UX needs to be intuitive, right? For people to be able to learn it without any training and teaching. So I think, the way I see technology is, one is, I think technology is a great equalizer. Earlier, people would be learning the same topic from different individuals in classrooms where, even though organizations would try to have the highest quality, there is the limitation of not being able to make that scalable. So I think one is technology is able to make quality learning scalable. So I think that's the first. Second is the 70-20-10 phenomena of you're learning 70% while you're doing the role, 20% through mentorship and formal discussions, and 10% in classroom. I think technology plays a big role in that 70, where in the course of your day-to-day, in the course of maybe even 30 minutes prior to a discussion, when you have time, when you're looking to develop your individual growth plans, etc., technology is able to augment your learning. So I think that's the second. The third, I would say, is what Coursera has done, where we have taken chat GPT and generative AI, and we've said, how can we use this technology while we have a generative AI academy to teach Gen AI. And, our founder, Andrew, had said, AI will be the new electricity. But how do we also use that for our own products? So what we've done is we've created an application called Coursera Coach, where this is simply an AI-based chatbot, where they have the history of learning that the individual has done on the platform, and they can ask, what should I do next? Can you summarize this course for me in simple terms? Can you give me practice questions? So using the power of AI to be able to supplement to the learner, and Course Builder, which is using the power of AI to be able to supplement what an admin can do. And, Shalini, you made the point around how English will be the new coding language. So adding natural language prompts which say, I need a course to be created on XYZ for ABC audience of this length. And then, AI should just make the course for you on the basis of the 10,000 courses and the 200,000 clips we have, with quizzes, etc. So, it's for me, who is not on the technical side, to see that this output has been created really shows the application of technology in order to provide learning and skilling. So I think that has been very, very encouraging to see over the last 6 months for me.
Shalini, coming to you, you weaved a very interesting story when you told us that why we should learn and what we should be learning. And you also touched upon UI, UX for how to learn to give better experience. Further building up on the experience part, I'd like to ask you, what are the possibilities for online learning to become more personalized and more experiential for the learner?
I think Arushee already touched upon some of the most exciting cutting edge work that's happening right now. And I think while generative AI has use cases across the industries in many, many different ways, at least for learning, this is a game changer. And all of us are already seeing that. So very similar to what Arushee spoke about, about Coursera as a platform. At Genpact, for example, we have our own learning platform where for every role in the organization, we have created a capability framework for people to know which skills should they learn, and not just skills in one area. So not just, let's say, technical skills, but technical skills, professional skills, business skills, process skills, right? How do you do that? Another great thing that Arushee spoke about, how do you learn in the flow of work? And while so far it has still been driven largely by the human to say, now I need to go learn, I think AI will bring the learning to them. So if you're inside Outlook, if you're inside your emails, if you're inside Teams, wherever you are working, you would actually see AI prompting you, coaching you, helping you to say, is this what you wanted to do? So this is taking learning in the flow of work to a completely different level, where as you do your work, you almost have a companion with yourself, right? So you have AI as a learning companion, which is assisting you, helping you at every stage to say, you can do this better. And if you don't know about this, go, learn about it, practice a little bit, come back and kind of do it. So I think where this is going to completely change the game is people who may not have today the highest level of skills, for them to perform at the same level as somebody else who has those skills, that gap will get shorter and much, much narrower, because now you can do it very, very quickly, right? So somebody either who's new or who may not have come from that background or has some basic knowledge but may not have had that experience, for example, they can actually leapfrog with AI by their side. So I'm very, very excited and positive. And we're already seeing early results of how AI can be a learning coach, companion, knowing you better, hyper personalizing your learning, and that too in the flow of work.
Yeah, indeed, these are very exciting times, and generative AI really knows no bounds. Arushee, I would like to ask you, how is Coursera leveraging generative AI as a powerful tool for learning?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, we look at learning as something that we do for our customers, right? So one is, of course, using technology and AI that we have been doing for months and years. Our founder, Andrew Ng, happens to be one of the foremost authorities on AI, been a professor at Stanford and has been teaching this. So, this was something we were excited about for years. And now we have felt like it is our duty to take a leadership position in the AI learning space, given the experience and given the expertise that we have at our disposal. So we're doing this through 5 ways. One, we are saying we need upskilling for AI. So we have initiated a generative AI academy. Second, we have said that can we make, through AI, can we make the, if I were to call it blue collar or entry level professions, for them to have skilling available, we have created what we call as career academy for that. So this is the upskilling and the reskilling for people to do more in their jobs or to pivot their jobs. And then what we have done is I already spoke about Coach, which is the third feature, Course Builder, which is how do we create courses using everything at our disposal specifically for cohorts. And the last thing, which is very exciting, is we're using AI and machine translations to translate all of our courses at scale. Because at the end of the day, you need this to be available in the language of the learner. So we happen to live in India where, English is the business language. But there is a number of countries where the business language is not English. And I'm happy to share, we've already translated 4,000 courses in 7 languages. And the next one, which is coming up in January, is Hindi. So, sky is the limit after we get to machine translations. So these are the 5 use cases that we're already doing for our customers and excited to then take it from there as we scale forward.
Interesting. Shalini, so lastly, I'd like to ask you, what are some of the business and learning outcomes you expect from skilling initiatives in the context of a diverse and more digital workforce?
Again, great question. And, it's typically very hard to have tangible measures or ROI of learning, because it always seems like it's a soft thing. And it's something that at the top of everything else. And, perhaps the Maslow's pyramid, something which is still a little bit at the top end of that pyramid. But increasingly what we are seeing, and this is how some of our internal processes are wired as well at Genpact, is the learning funnel, what people are learning, at what pace they are learning, what skills they are building. Is the learning funnel pretty much mimicking your talent demand funnel, right? So what you're seeing in the industry, and we work with almost, top 500 Fortune 800, top 500 large clients, Fortune 500 clients, all the demand that we see from them for business transformation, for digital transformation, if you look at that, and if you look at the learning funnel, are they mirroring each other? Yeah. And there may not be a one-to-one correlation there. It doesn't mean that everybody who's learning is going to get into something, but is it similar in terms of the shape and speed and size of the funnel? So I think that's one important one. You've got to stay relevant to the business. The second end of it is really talent build, growing the talent, making sure everybody within the organization is reaching their best potential. And there what we've seen is, while, of course, we track some of the traditional metrics around, active learners month on month, course or proficiency enhancement, what skills they are learning, etc. interestingly, what we do is we also look at correlation between people who are learning and are learning frequently and employee engagement and growth. And we found a fantastic positive correlation between people who learn and who are engaged and happy with what they do. And we have a systematic mechanism to kind of poll employees through an AI-based bot, which is constantly telling us how employees across the world are feeling. And this is across 120,000 people. And it's been very, very fantastic to see that people who learn even as little as 15 minutes a day, we found they are 3 times more engaged than people who don't. So learning, actually supporting business, and helping people become better, those are the 2 large metrics that organizations should contextualize for themselves.
Arushee, the digital landscape in the work world is evolving very fast. So, our viewers would love to know from you, being at the helm of Coursera, what's your vision for the future of learning, and what tangible outcome can businesses and organizations reap from it?
I think our vision is ultimately being able to provide quality learning anytime, anywhere. We have, our B2B partnerships. We also have our consumer platform where there is a number of career starters and switchers. So at the end of the day, we want to be able to partner with our customers to provide learning. That's really the vision of Coursera, which is ultimately a B Corp listed in the US. So I think that's kind of the first important imperative that we have. The second, I think, is maybe keeping pace or being one step ahead of the learning requirements. There are a number of surveys, and even the ones that have been recently released say that more than half of the workforce will have 50% of their job roles looking different in 2 years. So what will that difference be? What will they need to learn? It is up to us to be able to look at trends and provide that learning just in time or ahead of time, so that organizations, for example, where Genpact is serving those Fortune 500, they will also need to be ahead. And hence, it is our responsibility to make sure that we're not just providing what is already required, but also providing what will be required in this 1 or 2 years' time. So quality of education as well as the skills of tomorrow, those are the 2 things which are important. And from an outcomes perspective, what I would say, I think we call it role readiness. Gone are the days where learning ROI needed to be proved that should we do learning or not. Now it is all about learning effectiveness, that we need to have learning, but what is the ultimate outcome? And I think the simplest way to describe it is role readiness, because that helps in internal mobility, that helps in career progression, that helps in fulfilling the roles internally where there is a build versus buy strategy, which ultimately helps in cost, as well as in winning projects, which helps in revenue. Because when you have the roles to service your end customers, will you find there to be outcomes? So role readiness is the real pillar. And then there are a number of measurement metrics such as cost and revenue that we have found to be most effective from an ROI perspective.
Thank you, ladies. It's been an incredibly insightful and engaging conversation. We've learned great techniques to leverage digital learning for equitable growth and opportunity. The power of these virtual conversations is phenomenal. It helps us to stay connected, share, and learn from each other. So viewers, I hope you've gained valuable insights on this critical topic. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to reach out to our speakers or myself if you have any further questions and want to continue the discussion. Until then, thank you and goodbye.